Well, good morning. Welcome to C3. We are so glad you guys are here as we are kicking off our new series, Greater Reward, as we're going to be talking about the idea of how investments that we make now will add up to a much greater reward down the road and what that looks like. And so this morning, I'm a little hoarse. I've been screaming and yelling at ball games all day yesterday. So if my voice cracks in the middle of this, I promise I've already gone through puberty. All right, so that's not what's going on. All right, it's just my voice is a little crackly right now. But listen, we're so glad you guys are here, and I'm excited to start this new series. And we're talking about the idea of investments. Now, I don't know if any of you guys are big investors or if you always keep an eye on the stock markets or anything like that. I feel like some of that stuff I just pay attention to because as an adult, like people expect you to know some of that stuff, but I really don't look into those things much at all. Now, I got stocks and bonds, I have all that stuff. You know, I pay somebody to do that for me, so I don't have to worry about it. But I'll be honest, me as an individual, I worry about money. Now, but I'm also this weirdo where I also like to spend money. So I live in this world where I spend money, but then I get worried because I spent money, all right? Like, I don't know what it is, but I like to be able to have nice things, get nice things, but then I'm like, I don't know if I should get it because, you know, it's a lot. I don't know. It's the worst. I live in this horrible conundrum every single day of my life. So a lot of times my wife is the one who takes care of our finances and stuff because I get too nervous. I probably should be over it because maybe then we won't spend anything because I'm too scared to spend any money. So a lot of times I'm also the person when we go out to eat, when we sit down to eat and the bill comes, I just push it over to the wife because we all have the same bank account and I don't want to see how much we just spent on that meal because it makes me nervous, right? So you just pay it. Because my favorite is when I push it over to Ellen and Ellen takes it and she does this. And I'm like, nope, I don't want to know. Do not tell me what that dollar amount was. I just want to enjoy the meal, right? So I get nervous about that stuff. But we also have to make investments. Maybe some of you have made a bad investment before. Maybe there's something you've put money into you thought was surefire. This thing was going to go all the way, and it just didn't work out. Maybe some of you have made some bad bets before, right? You've probably been making some bets over the past couple weeks, I bet, out there. How many are betting on the Bengals to win today? I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens, all right? But if you put your dollar on it, it makes it a little more serious, right? I know people who do that. But I want you guys to know about a bad investment that some people, I decided to literally Google bad investments and just see what came up, right? And a lot of the things that came up was like the worst things to invest in 2022 or 2023, you know, and stuff like that. But one of these articles I ran into I thought was interesting was the worst investments made by sports stars. And it went down a list of guys and some of the silly things that they thought was just going to take off and they were going to do some amazing, it was just going to make them millions upon millions of dollars. And I want to share just a couple of them with you really quick. One guy back in 2004, this guy, he was a professional baseball player, and he invested $70,000 into actually a really weird invention. Basically, what this was it was like a raft, like an inflatable raft that would go under your furniture. Okay, so if like you lived in an area where like you had flash floods a lot or there were storms all the time, something, if it felt water, it would like under your couch and then it would just float and then it wouldn't ruin your couch. Which, I mean, I guess kind of the idea initially sounds cool, but it's like if my kid runs by it with like a glass of water, does that and then it's like fills up my entire front room, or like, is it just one-time use and then it's ruined? Like, I don't know. Basically, here's what happens. He put $70,000 into this. He never saw a dime of that again. It went absolutely nowhere. But he had this guy. This guy charmed him into buying it and saying that he was going to make millions doing it. Didn't work out well. There was another guy. His name's Scottie Pippen. Some of you guys might know him. He actually invested in his own jet. He bought a Gulfstream private jet for about almost $4.5 million, $4.3 million. He bought a private jet just for himself, just so that he could flex on everybody. What he didn't know is that it was going to take a minimum of $1 million just to even start to work on it to get it off the ground. So he's like, okay, so he puts $1 million in. The guy comes back and says, actually, it's going to be another $1 million to be able to get this thing off the ground. Probably roughly altogether, probably about $11 million later, that jet never went off the ground, and he was out millions upon millions of dollars. So that was a bad investment by this guy. But this morning, if I can, just for a couple minutes, I want to talk about this idea of a good investment. And when we know what we're investing in, how important it is for us to do just that. And Jesus shares this in this story this morning about how when you invest in the right things, we will get a greater reward in the end. I want to share the story with you in Luke chapter 21. Luke chapter 21, right in the beginning. Now, some of you have probably heard this verse before, but I'll tell you, I remember, I think just hearing it in Sunday school and stuff growing up, I thought this was a much bigger story. This is literally 4 verses, all right? It's just this little thing that's kind of nudged in there, but it has a huge meaning for every single one of us. Here's how it goes. Right in verse 1. As Jesus looked up, he saw the rich putting their gifts into the temple treasury. He also saw a poor widow put in 2 very small copper coins. Truly, I tell you, he said, this poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these people gave their gifts out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in all that she had to live on. So, Jesus is actually close to the temple courts here at this point. He's been going back and forth with these guys, the Pharisees and all these guys, just in the previous passage. And what ends up happening here is they're standing watching. What they would do in the temple courts there were the little boxes. And in these boxes, this is where you brought your tithe. This is where you brought your offering to God, to the church, to the temple, all right? And these guys were coming in that were super duper rich, okay? And they were just bringing in piles of money. They were bringing in big old bags of money. It just seemed like it just kept getting bigger, the amount they were bringing in. And they would put it in the box, and then everyone could hear it, everyone could see it. And it became, honestly, in those times, it was kind of an event. It was kind of like people walking down the catwalk or the runway, right? They would go through it, and people would be like, ooh, look at this guy. He's got a lot of money. Look at that one right there. Ooh, look at the amount of money that guy's putting in right now, all right? And they would put it in, and they would act like they were being all humble. You know, it's like, oh, and then it'd be like, oh, but it's for God, you know. So they're putting all this money in, right? And then as that's happening, here comes a woman. And she's a widow. That's all we really know about her. We know 2 things about her, actually. We know she's a widow, and we know she's po. She ain't got no money, all right? And she's walking through, and she's got these 2 small copper coins. She takes those, and she puts them in. And I'm sure everybody there was hearing that thing. She probably went to, because they had a separate box for the women, all right? So she goes over to where the women put their money in, and ting, ting, drops them both in. And Jesus, I'm sure no one's paying attention to her. No one's watching her. No one cares about her. And in this moment, Jesus notices her. Jesus sees what she does. And he draws attention to it. And he says, what this woman just did was more than anybody else that has given money today, because she gave out of her poverty, not out of her wealth. And so this woman, I think if she walked into church today and she was a part of what we were doing today, we would look at her and she would also probably view herself as someone who didn't have a lot of money, someone who didn't have enough money. A lot of times we find ourselves in places where we don't feel that we have enough. And I'm not just not talking about money, but that's also a common occurrence, right? There's probably many of you this morning that would say, I don't have enough money. If I had enough money, I would be able to do A, B, and C. Maybe some of you this morning, you're saying, I don't have enough time. Man, I hear that all the time. I say it myself, right? I just wish I had more time. We can't do that. We don't have any time for that, right? We can't be a part of that. We don't have time. How in the world am I supposed to do it, right? A lot of us are always looking for time. Now, we didn't have more time than when the pandemic hit and everything got shut down, right? But then the second we felt that was over, man, we flipped that switch really quick, didn't we? We got right back to the grind, and now we're all like, I don't have any more time. I'm out of time, right? Do you know what's interesting to me? We talked about this a while back. We were going through reading this article here at the church, and it was interesting to me that this guy made a point in his article. He said, listen, out of everybody in the world, what do we all have in common? Doesn't matter if it's you, doesn't matter if it's the President of the United States, doesn't matter if it's the Queen of England, it doesn't matter if it's some missionary over in a foreign land. What do we all have in common? We all get the same amount of time in the day, right? Every single one of us. How much does everybody get? There's 24 hours in a day. Everybody gets 24 hours. We all get the same amount. It's what we do with those 24 hours and how we manage those 24 hours that shows a difference in how we work with it. So we all say, though, we don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. Maybe for you, you're saying, I don't have enough ability. I don't have enough talent. I don't have enough gifts. A lot of times we do this, especially in the church world, but we do it in other places too, where we say, listen, I just can't, I'm not good at that. I don't think I could ever be a part of that. I don't think I could ever make a change because I don't think there's anything special about me or what I do. I don't have anything that stands out. I don't have anything to contribute. Many times we feel like we don't have enough. Many times we probably feel like this woman who is a widow, who is poor, and she's without a lot in her life. Nobody pays attention to her. No one cares about her. Everyone cares about these other people who are putting up all this money and all this attention that goes to them. But we often feel many times in our areas of our lives like we are this same woman and that we are in this same position. So if I can share with you guys just a couple points really quick, I want to talk about the idea when we feel like we don't have enough. I think Jesus shows us something very important for every single one of us in just these 4 small verses about what that looks like. When we don't think that we have enough, the first thing I want you to see, God sees and he evaluates way above our heads. From this passage, we see this woman. From the outside, she's a widow, she's poor, she has absolutely nothing to work with. She has nothing going for her right now, all right? And she's coming in with 2 small copper coins, which basically amounts to nothing, right? She's got nothing going on. She has absolutely nothing. And in our view, we see that and we either overlook it, we don't care about it, or we feel pity for those people, or we feel uncomfortable about stuff like that, and we tell ourselves that they are in such a bad place. But so interestingly, in this passage, as this is happening, this is when God sees something. The big gifts that were being given in this temple, that were being noticed by all these people, that people were making such a big deal out of it. That's probably what the disciples were watching. They were probably watching all these guys take us out. But Jesus saw what absolutely no one else did. I want you guys to know this morning that in every single one of your lives, whether it's your finances, whether it's your time, whether it's your talents and abilities, things that you feel that you lack, I want you to know that Jesus sees something with you that absolutely no one else sees. When everyone else tells you that you don't have enough of that, or you are telling yourself that you don't have enough of that, God sees and he evaluates way above our mind frame, way above anything that we could come up with, anything that we think that here's the determination from my life. This is how things are going to go. No, God says, I see above that. I notice you. I know that you can do something amazing. I know that there's a greater reward for you if you were just to be faithful in this moment and you were to be able to do something for me. So I want you guys to know that that is so important. We have to know that when we are investing in God and that we give everything that we have, that he sees something and he recognizes that and he cares about that. That's important for every single one of us. I coach basketball. I've been a part of sports for a while. I was one of those guys that was like, I'm never going to coach. And then I started coaching because of my kid, right? And my thing is, we can suck, we can be bad, I don't care. But if you give me everything you got, I can't be mad at you. I absolutely cannot be mad at you. And I truly feel, the reason I feel that way is because I believe that that's how God operates with me. Because let me tell you guys, when it comes to my relationship with God, I struggle a lot. I think that I have it all together, and then I do something dumb. Or I'm not faithful in an area. But guess what? God says, are you doing everything you can? Because many times the reason why I know something's wrong is because I'm not doing everything I can within my ability to be faithful. That's when I know it's an issue. It's when I give everything that I have to him. Just like this widow in this story, who she probably needed those 2 copper coins, but she still gave it. And because of that, God sees above that, and he's happy, and he's proud, and he's amazing. I shared this story once, and I believe it. When your kids on Christmas, they get you gifts from Santa's Workshop or whatever at school. I used to do it for my parents. You probably did it or something similar to that, or your kids get you something like that. My kids always, I remember when Truett, my oldest, when he was like, 6, 7 years old. I think one year I got a tie. Another year I got an ice scraper. Like a Dollar Tree ice scraper or something like that. One year, I got this random keychain. But you know what's funny about that? Because everyone's laughing and everyone's, that's cute, that's funny. But you know what? I love those gifts. I love those gifts. Do you want to know why I love those gifts? Because when I'm opening it, do you know what my kids are doing? They're watching it. Because they are so glad and so proud of what they did and what they bought for their parents and their grandparents. They love that. I want you to know that for you and I, when we are giving of our time, of our talents, and our treasures, and we feel like we're not giving much and we're just, trying, but this is not much we can work with, I want you to know that God delights in those moments. God loves those moments. And He is happy. And He rejoices. But what we have to do is remember that He evaluates way above us. His ways and His thoughts are higher and deeper than anything we could ever imagine. Someone wrote this, and I thought this was interesting. Someone calculated that the 2 copper coins, some of you, it was called like a mite at that time. But basically, if those 2 copper coins had been deposited in a bank at a 4% interest, compounded semi-annually, by today it would have grown to the sum of, you ready? $4.8 billion trillion. $4.8 billion trillion. Those 2 small copper coins in just a span of some 2,000 years? Right? When this story happened, when this actually happened, today, 2022, if that would have been invested, it would have been worth so much money. $4.8 billion trillion. That's a lot of money, right? I would take that too. I want you guys to see this. This is the span of some 2,000 years. Let's take those 2 coins this woman gave faithfully to God, specifically for God, and put it up to the lens of eternity and what God can accomplish when we give to Him. And when we understand that this doesn't look like much to the world, this doesn't look too much like anything to anybody else around me or even to myself sometimes, but I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it. God can do something amazing because He sees beyond what we do. He evaluates things way different than we ever could. And here's the last thing I want you to see, and we've kind of hit on it already. We got to see that God sees and evaluates way above our heads, and the last thing is this: giving faithfully to God, it honors Him. When we give faithfully to God, it honors the one who created us. Now, I want you guys to understand, a lot of times when you hear about giving, and especially even in this story, when you hear about this, you think that means, okay, listen, that means this dude's telling me this morning because I got like $4 in my bank account that I have to give $4 to the church this morning. No, that's not what I'm saying at all, because there's so many more aspects to our giving than we realize. We've talked about those things. Understanding giving faithfully to those things. For you, maybe it is your money. Maybe you're holding on to that thing. Listen, and I promise you this. If you have money and you feel like God is telling you to give money, hey, after church is over, walk on down the street and tell that church right there, hey, God told me I need to give my money to a church, so I'm going to give it to you. Do it. Don't give it here. Give it to somebody else. All right? Maybe for you it's your time. Maybe for you, that thing that you hold on to so dearly, your time, is so important to you. Maybe you need to give that up. Maybe you need to give faithfully of your time. Or maybe for you, it's your abilities. Maybe for you, it's your talents. Maybe for you, it's your skills. Things that you still think you don't have enough of and that you can't really do anything with. I want you to know that we are to give faithfully. And why do we do that? Because it honors the one who created us. It is truly the things that God has given us. It is a gift from God. And when we recognize that, we give it back to Him. We've talked over the past couple weeks about who are we at C3? What do we do at C3? What's our mission? What's our goal? What are we supposed to be doing? What are we supposed to be conveying every single week, every single day of our lives? What do we want to live our lives by? What do we want you to live your life by every single day? And it's as simple as this. Tony brings it back to it every single day. Love God and love others. This is what we're supposed to be doing. This is exactly what he told us. He told us that we're supposed to love God with everything that we are, and then we are supposed to love our neighbor as ourselves. This is the same exact thing. So when we're loving our neighbor, when we're loving others, then we are in turn loving God. So how can I love God? I can give of my time. I can give of my abilities. I can give of my finances, my money, the things that God has blessed me with. I can give these to people because in turn, it's loving God. This is so important. I want you guys to understand this. This is huge. When Jesus is telling the story about the widow, right before that passage, Jesus was talking about these people, these Pharisees, and these people praying around, making a show of things. He talked about the fact that they were destroying widows' houses. He had such a soft spot for widows. He had such a soft spot for the people who were considered the least of these. This woman would be considered one of those people. And Jesus tells the story again. Those people who come into your life, who are the least of these, when we love them, when we care for them, we're doing the same thing for him. We're doing the exact same thing for him. I want to share a story with you. There was this missionary. He was in South Africa, and he had been there for about 7 years, but about the last 3 years, he was getting really weary. I mean, tired. This guy wanted to leave the mission field. He was done. He couldn't handle it. So, but his family was there, and he felt like he was trying to be faithful. He was suffering for God, so I'm going to ride it out. So he's about 7 years in. Well, in South Africa, it was so hot that this guy dealt with heat every day. He dealt with bugs every single day, just miserable, all right? What they would do at night, they had like a water pump outside. They would take water from the pump, and they would spray down their beds with water just so that they would get a couple hours of being cooled off before it all just dried up from the heat, so they could get a couple hours of coolness before they fell asleep. Because I don't know about you, but trying to sleep hot is one of the worst feelings in the world. So they are spraying down their beds, literally soaking their beds so they can be wet, right? Or so that they can be cooled off, all right? They cooked outside. They did everything that they could to keep their house cool. Well, he was miserable. The kids were having a good time. They were oblivious, but he was hating life, right? Well, they get a call from a church that's up in the mountains that they want to have him come and speak. Well, they were all for it because get a little higher altitude, get a little cool off, give him a little break, right? So they go up to the mountains with this church, and right before they went up to the mountains, he got a call from the mission board back here in the States, back here in America. And they told him they were going to give, the board was going to approve him for $10,000 to be able to give to the local churches in that area, get them Bibles and some seats and just different things that they need, any repairs that they needed in the place. So he went to that church and spoke, and he told them about it. He said he really was like, I mean, you and I were like $10,000, that's nice, but that's like that's sweet, that's nice, right? I mean, you're all like $10,000 would be nice to have personally, but like for that is, cool, right? It's a good thing. And it is, it's awesome. So when he shares this story with the church literally busts out in celebration. They literally started an impromptu, what they call a worship offering session. So basically what that is the whole church, and it lasts about 3 hours. What they end up doing, they're playing music, they're dancing. They literally are just dancing right now, okay? And they're coming up, and they are so inspired by a place in America giving these $10,000 for these churches that they want to start giving. They want to be a part of that. So they're literally walking in with their money. They have it in their hand, and they do this little dance, and then they come in and they put it right on the table that's at the front of the church, all right? And people are adding money, and they're doing it forever. They're doing it forever. And I guess they did this weird thing where like they would like come and act like they're going to put it down and be like, oh, I'm not done dancing yet, and go back, and then they bring it, and then like, okay, all right, lay it down. So they kept doing this for like 3-4 hours. It lasted forever. Well, the pastor said he was just amazed by what was happening. He couldn't believe this. This was awesome. But he noticed there was a lady all the way in the back, this old, very old lady. She kind of crouched down, kind of keeping to herself. She wasn't talking. She didn't even seem like excited. Everything was happening, but she's still there. Well, eventually they were getting close to the end of this, and she gets up. She walks all the way down to the front of the church. And as she's walking, she gets in her blouse, and she pulls out this handkerchief. It's all tied up. You can tell there's something in it. Well, she opens up the handkerchief. It took her forever. He said it just seemed like she was there for an hour trying to get this thing unhooked. She gets it out. She has this coin. And she lays that coin down on the table. And as she lays that coin down on the table, they're kind of looking at it. He's like, I've never seen that currency. I've never seen this coin before. It's weird. So she goes on back, kind of strides on back, sits down. They're like, I don't understand what's happening. So they pick up this coin. He doesn't recognize it. He talks to the pastor because, they're still just celebrating. He talks to the pastor and says, what is this and where did it come from? I don't know, what's that woman's story? They really don't know the woman. So 10 minutes later, they go back there, talk to her. The pastor comes back up, and he shows and tells him what this coin was. And I want to show you this picture. This is a British half penny. She had this penny for a very, very long time. And this British half penny for her was, in her words, her investment. This was her go-to. It was going to be part of her retirement. It was going to be part to take care of her family. It was going to be able to set them up for the rest of her life until she was gone. So she was holding on to it. It was very, very important to her. That hanky that she had it in, was all, dirty and nasty, but she kept it right there in her blouse because it was the most important thing to her. Well, that service, she lays it down there. It's everything that she had wanted and hoped for. She laid it down to give it faithfully to that church. They come to find out this British halfpenny, the reason why it was unrecognizable, this was back in the 90s when this happened. The reason it was unrecognizable, because this coin had stopped being in circulation by 1967. She didn't know it. This coin was worth literally nothing. Had no value. She couldn't buy anything with it. Nobody wanted it. At that point, it was junk. But to her, it meant absolutely everything. Everybody else, it meant nothing, but it meant everything to her, and she laid it down at the church. This missionary, he held on to that coin, and for 30 years, he still has this coin. And it reminds him about the idea that even though the world, even though everybody else around you may not recognize you as having enough and having anything in that manner, God still recognizes something amazing. What ends up happening is this guy's so amazed by it, he said, I am going to make sure this woman is flushed with cash. I want to take care of her. That pastor tells her, don't you dare steal this woman from giving everything that she had. She's in our church. We will take care of her. So they end up taking this woman and taking care of her for the rest of her life, her family. They get her a new house, new home. She had nothing to worry about until she passed away. When we give faithfully, and when we understand that God can see something that maybe we can't, and God can recognize something that we can't, in our lives, I want you to know that it is the small things that we give. It is the little things that we give that no one sees that God recognizes the most. This is what he has for us. It's the small little things that no one else sees that we give that God recognizes and loves the most. So here's my challenge for you this morning. I want to leave you with a challenge, and then we're going to close. What is it? What area do you think you don't have enough? Think about it. Is it your time? Is it your abilities, your talents, your gifts? Is it your finances? Maybe you feel like you don't have enough. Here's what I'm going to challenge you guys to do. I want you to evaluate, where is that area where you lack? Where is that area where you're like, I don't have enough of blank? What is that for you? And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to make a point this week that you are going to give from that area of your life. If you say, Aaron, I don't have any talents or ability, I don't have enough of that. I'm going to challenge you. That thing that you feel like you don't, I can't talk to people. I'm going to challenge you to start a conversation with someone this week. I'm not good at singing. I'm going to challenge you to close the door of your car, crank up that Jesus music, and just let her belt out by yourself, all right? Or do it in the shower. That's my favorite place to sing, is in the shower, okay? Maybe, I don't know, Celine Dion, what are you into? Whatever it is, just crank it, let it go, all right? I want you to take a chance to be able to give that to God. Maybe it's your time. Maybe you're like, I don't have enough time. I don't have time for people. I don't have time for situations. I don't have time for problems. I don't have time. I want you to make a point this week that you are going to invest time into someone or something that you normally don't. Maybe it's your Bible reading. Maybe it's your prayer life. Maybe it's those people that you need to reach out to. Maybe it's your neighbors, your literal neighbors, the people that live around you. I'm going to challenge you to give your time to that. Maybe it is your finances. Maybe you feel like you don't have enough. Like I said earlier, I'm challenging you right now. I'm not saying that after the service we're going to break out into a worship session. You guys are going to run and start throwing money down on the steps here. What I am saying is, though, if that's an area where you feel like you lack and you don't have enough, I'm going to challenge you to do something about that. What can you do? I can pay for the person's lunch behind me in the McDonald's drive-thru. You're like, thanks, Aaron. Come back next week. Thanks, Aaron. That person's meal behind me was $105. I've had that happen. It stinks, but at that point, you got to just eat crow, man, because you committed. Don't drive away. I thought about driving away. You're like, sorry, as you drive away. It's too much. I didn't know you had a family of 14. Maybe for you, it's you need to give money to someone you know that's in need. Maybe you need to take care of something that you haven't financially in your life that you need to pay off. I don't know what that is, but what I'm asking you to do is I am simply asking you that in that area where you lack, you are going to give that faithfully, knowing that God will take care of you. This is my challenge to you. So this morning, if you would you just bow your heads and close your eyes just really fast? I want to ask you one thing only. As you take this challenge with you and if you feel like you don't have enough and you feel like you're without and you feel like you're lacking, I'm going to ask you to take on that challenge this week. I want you to be serious about this challenge. We're talking about a greater reward here. Listen, I can't guarantee you that if you do something faithfully this week, that when you come back next week, you're going to have this awesome story that you can share with me or you can share with someone here. But I will promise you that God sees it and recognizes it, and He's going to do amazing things with it in this life or the next. But maybe you're here this morning and you don't have enough to be able to change things. What do I mean by that? You are unable to change the situation that you are in your life because of your sin, because of the things that you have done wrong, the things that you have done against God. I want you to know this morning that if you are here without Jesus, if you are here without salvation, all that He asked for you to do is ask for forgiveness for the things that you have done, repent, turn away from your sin, and give your life to Him. And He promises you He will save you from that life. So if you want that this morning, all you have to do is call on His name. All you have to do is talk to Him, have a conversation with Him. And we do that through prayer. And you can pray something like this. Now, you don't have to pray these exact words, but you can say these to God and believe what you're saying. You can pray something like this right now where you're sitting. God, I know that I'm a sinner. I know that I've messed up. But God, I know that you sent Jesus to die for those sins. I ask that you forgive me. I want to turn away from these things. I don't want to have to deal with these anymore. I'm giving them to you. Thank you. Thank you so much for dying for those sins. I want to live a life for you now. Everybody's still with their heads bowed and eyes closed. If there's somebody this morning, you say, that was me, Aaron, and I gave my life to Jesus this morning. I want to celebrate with you. The only way I want to do that is if I can recognize you by seeing your hand lifted up, and then that's it. I'm not going to bring you down the aisle or anything like that. If that's you and you say, Aaron, I asked Jesus into my life today. I asked Him to save me, and He saved me. If that's you this morning, slip your hand up, put it back down so I can pray and celebrate with you. Anybody this morning at all? Anybody at all? God, you are faithful, even when we're not. God, you see stuff that we can't. So now I'm asking that in everyone's lives, the things that we can't see, God, that you continue to work. You continue to do those things. Help us to know, God, that when we invest in you, the reward is greater than we could ever imagine. We love you so much today. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. And amen. Guys, thank you so much for being here this morning. We hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. Hope you guys get something good for lunch or dinner. And we will see you back next week. Thank you, guys.
The floor that falls around me, my feet, they fall and stumble, my foundation falling down, and I spare